Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Two Way Tonight. We'll spend a lot of time this evening talking about Charlie Kirk. And if you watched the morning meeting, you saw that there was a fair amount of anger on the right. And unfortunately, there's a correlation between how vibrant the conversation is on the morning meeting and how many emails you all send me and texts and posts on social media telling me either I'm a left-wing nut or a right-wing nut, or I hate Republicans or I love Republicans. And I'll try to be really clear. Again, I want this assassination of Charlie to be an opportunity for the country to come together. People pay lip service to that. And I got members of Congress texting me saying the country needs to come together. I can tell you this, folks, it's not going to happen by itself. It will not happen organically. It will not be that simply because someone killed Charlie Kirk, that everyone's going to lay down their arms. And a testament to that is this program, this platform here. You have to think about how it's actually going to happen. And here's how it won't happen. It won't happen if you take what I say, I'll leave Sean and Dan out of it, and say, you're equating the assassination of Charlie Kirk with January 6th. Someone today told me January 6th was a reaction to George Floyd and that it's really the Democrats' fault. Wasted a lot of time with that person today. You know my view. My view is the same as Sean. Decades of the media and liberal cultural institutions hurting Republicans. And Sean and I are so sad for young conservatives on campus who can't express their views. Okay? Horrible. You know what else is horrible? January 6th, election denialism, killing of Minnesota legislators. If you all want to say that every time I list something, I'm talking to the conservatives now, the MAGA people, every time I list something that adversely affected Democrats, that I'm equating them, or I'm saying they're exactly the same. They're not. There's asymmetries. We used the word asymmetries 100 times this morning. Okay? They're asymmetrical. They're not identical. The sins of each side are not the same. I don't have the judgment and wisdom that apparently some of you do to allow you to measure them precisely with some magical calipers you have to say one side's faults are so much worse than the others. Now, again, you know my view. If you pay any attention to what I say, liberal media bias of universities, of big cultural institutions, insidious. And I'm particularly upset about the liberal media bias because I'm in that profession. Okay? If you think I don't have any credibility to talk about liberal media bias, if you heard me talk about the Biden cover-up and the media's role in trying to pretend Joe Biden wasn't having acuity decline, where will you look for anyone in the media profession with credibility on that issue? If you'll just say, well, Mark said January 6th was horrible today, said it was worse than the killing of Charlie Kirk. Didn't say it, but you people do not want the country to get better. If all you want to do is claim facts the contrary, that I'm saying everything's symmetrical. What about it? It's exactly the same. Never said it. What I have said is that people on the left better educate themselves on why people on the right are so sad and angry about Charlie being killed. They better do it because the anger's coming and it will be significantly worse, and the impact will be significantly worse if people on the left ignore the reality of why people on the right feel so strongly about Charlie being killed. My blood boiled today when I listened to a cable news show on a liberal network where they're praising Charlie now. Oh, he was so influential. Oh, he did so much to reach out to young people. Oh, President Trump relied on his judgment. The same fucking people who either didn't cover Charlie or covered him like he was a menace because he's conservative. Okay? Blood boils over that. But I live in a country that's divided 50-50. And you people on the right who want to accuse me of equating it, saying it's exactly the same, never said it. I keep repeating this because I'm done responding to lies about what I'm saying. But I will say, President Trump convinced tens of millions of you that the election was stolen, not that Mark Zuckerberg influenced it, not that rules were changed, that the election was stolen. That's bad. What kind of country do we live in when tens of millions of you believe something for which there is no evidence? Again, I'm not saying the rules weren't changed. I'm not saying Mark Zuckerberg didn't do stuff. I'm not saying that absentee ballot rules changed that helped Democrats. And I'm certainly not saying that the tech platforms didn't conspire to suppress the Biden laptop story. And I'm certainly not saying that Joe Biden didn't lie in the debate when he said his son got no money from China. I'm not saying any of those things. But tens of millions of you believe the election was stolen because President Trump told you to believe that. That's pretty bad, too, for our country. Tried to kidnap the governor of Michigan, killed Minnesota state legislators. Am I saying it's worse or exactly equal to assassinating Charlie? I'm not. I never have. But if you all want to live in a country where what we have is righteous anger at the other side, certainty that I'm here to help liberals or I'm here to help Trump, you're welcome to live in that country. That's not the country I want to live in. By the way, it's not the country Charlie wanted to live in either. What a mockery of his memory that you people who think you're supporting him are making by coming on a platform like this dedicated to truth, doing our best to let all voices be heard. And instead, what you want to do is say, this platform sucks because Mark Halperin and Dan Turrentine are saying that George Floyd's murder was so much worse than Charlie being assassinated. Think about the life you're consigning my son and your children and grandchildren to. And I'm so conscious of not being self-aggrandizing as I think about Charlie, because he was the most modest person I ever met, despite all his achievements. But this platform is trying to make a difference, bring you the news, let you raise your hand and be part of the conversation. And instead, what you want to do is, many of you, more of you than I can imagine, I'm sure it's happening in the chat right now, want to say to me, how dare you equate the murder of Charlie to things that you say Democrats suffered from? Okay. We'll talk more about this. Let me show you a couple things. Okay. A little Rorschach test for everybody. This is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar with Mehdi Hassan talking about Charlie. Okay. Watch this and tell me if it offends you. Okay. This is, how long is this? This is a minute. Watch Ilhan Omar talking to Mehdi Hassan about Charlie. Play number 12, please.
What I do know for sure is that, you know, Charlie was someone who once said, you know, guns save lives after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
Right, have no regard, downplay slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country by saying Juneteenth should never exist. And I think, you know, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, you know, like than to completely pretend that, you know, his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade or so. And
does that make your blood boil? Her mischaracterizing Charlie like that a day after he died? Does it? Okay, here's Megyn Kelly talking to me today on Next Up, number 13, please.
It's such a bastardization by the left. And in the past, whatever it's been, 18 hours, I've had zero appetite to look at what they're saying about him. Like, I'm having a really difficult time caring. And that's unlike me. You know, usually on these stories, I definitely look at what the left is saying, and then I usually mock them on my show, and it's somewhat cathartic. But I'm just not there at all. I just feel like they can go fuck themselves. I couldn't give two shits about what they think of Charlie Kirk. They didn't know him. They don't understand any of us. And it's because of willful blindness. They choose to demonize rather than seek to understand. So fuck them. I just feel like we know who he was. We understand.
That's okay. Sorry, cut up there. Okay. I'm telling you, I ask everyone on the left, study Charlie and understand not just how upset people are personally about such a lovely guy dying and being killed, but because of what he represents for tens of millions of people, to try to, at a minimum, allow students and campuses, if they want to be openly conservative, to do that, and to have free speech and conversation. Did Charlie ever make a factual mistake in public debate? He did. Did he try to? Was he a demagogue, or did he study so hard to bring facts to conversations? That's what I think. I studied him pretty hard. And I say again, these reporters today glorifying Charlie because they feel they have to, because they don't want to be fired like Matthew Dowd for being insensitive. I'd like them to go back and look at what they said about Charlie. I read one thing today by a reporter, on and on, print text reporter, glorifying him. And the things he said about Charlie Kirk over the years, it's, again, makes my blood boil. Okay, thank you for joining. Let's start over. This is 2A Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, your genial host. Very happy to have you here. If you'd like to get in on the conversation with our two great guests coming up soon, please raise your hand. If you're on X or YouTube, don't put smack in the chat. My anger at so many of you and frustration does nothing to diminish my fidelity to peace, love, and understanding, the presumption of grace to all. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help. And I know so many of you are smart people, reasonable people. And I know you people on the right are so angry at decades of unfairness. I'm a proponent for changing it. What I'm not a proponent of is just saying all the things you see wrong on the other side. I just don't want to live in a country at civil war for more years over Charlie being killed. Just don't. Okay. Our guests tonight, two returning champions, as they say on, what do they say that on, Jeopardy? Wheel of Fortune? I don't know. Returning champions is on something. Kristin Davison, Steve Olikara, they'll be here in a moment, and John Podhoretz of Commentary. Three great guests. I forgot John was on too. I'm gonna read a little bit of the news overview. Our three guests are going to come in here. Some of them will say, "Mark, are you okay?" Or "Mark, loved what you said." We'll see, and then we'll kick things around a little bit, and then we'll take your questions or comments. And already a lot of hands up, which we'd love to see. And I'll say again, our tagline here: two-way conversations like no other. Every episode we've done, including the special we've done yesterday with about Charlie, we've had conversations I haven't seen anywhere else in the media. So proud to be part of this. So proud to be part of it. But just please open your minds, open your hearts to thinking anew about how we should react to Charlie being dead. People on the left, say again, try to understand why this is so important to people on the right. And people on the right, try to explain it patiently rather than saying George Floyd, DEI, right? Let's just focus on what's in front of us now. Lovely 31-year-old man was killed. Okay. Very grateful to our sponsors of both this program and the morning meeting, who gave us the forbearance to not make me do advertisements when I was too upset to do much of anything but to get through the show. So I'll say thanks to both our sponsors, Cozy Earth and the Bonson Group, and happy to tonight tell you about their products. Cozy Earth products are fantastic. You can't see it because it's out of camera. I'm wearing the pants right now. Viscose made from bamboo. They're extremely comfortable. They look great every time I wear them. My wife says, "Oh, those look so great. Are those your Cozy Earth pants?" I say, "Yes, they are. It's all I wear." You can get them now at a pretty good price thanks to the good folks there. The sheets, the bedding, 100 night sleep trial, 10-year warranty, but you won't return them. Go to go to cozyearth.com. Somebody told me I'm saying Cozy Earth too quickly. Cozyearth.com. Can I say it slower than that and not bore you? Cozyearth.com. Use the code 2way. Inexplicably, simply by typing in the code box 2way, which is the number 2way, 40% off. And if you do nothing else today, buy the pants. Buy other stuff too, but buy the pants. Built for real life, made to keep up with yours. Cozy Earth. Thank you for listening and for your attention to this matter. All right. Today, what happened? CBS News, shortly before we came on the air, reported that, you can put that up, Sam, that's that new element. I don't know what number it is. They reported that they know now the identity of the killer, or at least they claim to. Now they've had two other people in custody, and then they withdrew the notion that they were suspects. But according to Jennifer Jacobs, one of the best reporters I know, good friend of mine, lovely person, news, federal law enforcement officials believe they have identified the name of a person of interest to officials, and a law enforcement source told Jennifer and her colleagues. So far, no arrest warrant has been issued in the Charlie Kirk case. Leads are being investigated. So I guess that doesn't really say they have someone in custody, obviously, but they've identified the name of a person of interest. May not be. Earlier today, this is number one, please. The FBI released a couple pictures. This morning they had a press conference and said, we might put some stuff out later today if we can't catch the person. So they said, well, now there's some pictures. So number two, these are the pictures of the alleged suspect. So here's one picture. For those of you listening to this program on a podcast, please download now. Baseball cap, dark glasses. Here's another photo, same gentleman. There was all sorts of reporting this morning about things that were allegedly written on the ballistics, but that may not be true. So we're not even going to talk about that. The vice president was supposed to come to New York today to commemorate the 24th anniversary of the attacks on this city and the Pentagon and Shanksville by terrorists in 2001. Instead, he went to Utah to pick up the body of his beloved friend, Charlie Kirk, and Charlie's wife and two kids who were in Utah for the event. If I said it this morning, but it's so important. If you haven't read the vice president's tweet about Charlie, I recommend it to you, not only because you'll give an understanding of the relationship the two of them had, but because it's lovely and it tells you a lot about Charlie. Okay. There's some criticism of the law enforcement briefings. We heard that on the morning meeting today. Here's the president this morning, or this afternoon, as he was leaving the White House. Number 6, Sam, please, talking about the investigation.
Why haven't they found the shooter yet, Mr. President? Are you concerned that it's been 24 hours?
Well, I hear they're making big progress, and we'll have to see what happens.
Do you have any indication of the shooter's motivation, sir?
I have an indication, yeah, but we'll let you know about that later. Thank you.
Okay. A few more things. Our guests will be here in a moment. I appreciate their forbearance because I went on longer than I intended. Susie Wiles, White House Chief of Staff, also another lovely person, very close to Charlie, as pretty much everyone in the West Wing is. Doesn't do a lot of interviews, but she did with every conservative's favorite CNN pundit, Scott Jennings, who's got a new podcast. Here is number 11, Sam, please. Susie Wiles talking about the relationship between Charlie and Team Trump on Scott Jennings' podcast, number 11, please.
Is everyone at the White House doing? This is traumatic for you, for the team. How are you personally, and how is the president?
Yesterday was a very tough day. It was a roller coaster. We thought there was bad news, and then we thought there would be good news, and then ultimately not so. So it was very rough. Charlie was very much a part of this family, and maybe the highest profile MAGA person outside of those that are working here. So I think it shook everybody to their core, and for many of us brought back the memories of last July 13th in Butler with the president. And then today is 9/11. So sort of a 1-2 punch.
So many people in the West Wing made the mistake I made of watching that horrible video of Charlie being shot. And for many, I've heard this now from 3 people, it brings home how close President Trump was to being killed. And what that would have looked like had a president of the United States been captured on video the way Charlie unfortunately was. So there's a lot of upset there. The president, when he commented there, was on his way here to New York City, where he probably will do something else, but he's also going to a Yankees game in the Bronx. Here is 14, please. The president and the first lady, before they left Washington, laying a wreath at the Pentagon on this momentous day. And then we'll see what else he does while he's in New York. I've heard other possibilities. Okay, one more thing, and then the guests will be here. And again, we got 30 hands up, more than usual. So we'll get to your questions real quick. with the guests. So please, if you'd like to be in on the conversation, raise your hand. The Dow continues to go up 600 points today. This is number 16, Sam. CNBC headline. Dow closes up 600 points, setting record as August inflation increase likely won't derail Fed cut. So people are still expecting 25% basis point cut when the Fed meets just next week. Stock market reminds me of our other sponsor, who I'll tell you about now, the Bahnsen Group. David Bahnsen, you've seen him here before. They're one of our sponsors this evening. They provide comprehensive wealth management services covering investment, tax, and estate planning. They manage all assets in-house, ensuring no outsourcing. You always know who's handling your money. And they have a newsletter. David writes it himself. It's called Dividend Cafe. Comes out every day. It's informative. It's accessible. It's written in plain language. And it is studded with hilarious jokes because David's a funny guy. So sign up for the newsletter. It's absolutely free. I read it every day in my inbox. Always happy to see it pop up. And if you read the newsletter, you will be smarter. And you can tell your friends, I get a really smart newsletter about the economy, and it costs me nothing. Go figure. Sign up right now. Go to tway.tv/TBG, the Bahnsen Group, tway.tv/TBG. I'm going to tell my colleagues right on the air here. We'll do a little business. We got to make that TBG part, that whole thing, a little bigger. At least that's hard for me to read. Again, to subscribe for free to Dividend Cafe, David's newsletter, go to tway.tv/TBG, and look forward to David doing some 1-hour shows with us coming up where you can ask him questions for the hour about finance. All right. Bringing our guests. Couldn't be happier to have them here. They'll be less cranky than I am. Kristin Davison, Republican strategist. I'll do the honors of bringing her in. Let's see what the expression on her face is when she pops up. There you go. Always very happy. Here, Kristin, where were you working in 2001 at 9/11? You working in the White House? No, you're muted. Sorry. Where were you working in 2001?
I was working in my freshman high school at that time.
When did you start working with Karl Rove? That's what's confusing me.
Yeah, it was when he was leaving the White House.
When he was leaving the White House.
Yeah, 2007, 2008.
Okay. All right. So I'm not so far off.
Nope, not too far off.
6 years.
You just made me a little older, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's all right. I was only basing it for some reason. I thought you worked in the White House with Karl. That's all I based it on. Anyway, so thank you, Kristin, for joining. Steve Olikara is here. Steven ran for Senate in Wisconsin. Still haven't figured out why he didn't win. We'll unpack that someday. And Steven, you tell us. Well, go back to Kristin. Kristin, did you know Charlie?
I did not personally know.
Yeah.
You know, we obviously are in the same world and admired him, and
yeah,
you know, we're involved, but I didn't know him personally.
Okay,
no.
but Steven, you did, right?
I did. That's right.
Talk about how you knew Charlie.
Yeah, we shared many debate stages together, and I think that's a big part of the message today in the wake of this tragic assassination, that we need an America where we can have spirited debates and constructive disagreement, not resolving these differences through violence. But I'm really grateful to have had those debates with Charlie, and equally as importantly, have some green room time with him where I got to really know him as a person.
Yeah. So who were the sponsors of those? Like, what were the?
Yeah, the sponsor of most of the debates is Politicon. It's sort of like the Comic-Con for politics. This was happening primarily from 2016 through 2019. And then I think they stopped doing it in this way around the time of the pandemic.
Yeah. And did you guys socialize outside the green room? Did you ever go to dinner or anything like that?
You know, I have to remember, I think we socialized a little bit. We do have some close mutual friends, and but the conversations I remember most are those green room conversations.
Yeah. John Podhoretz, brilliant writer, used to write movie reviews, right?
Still do occasionally.
Still do occasionally. Brilliant writer about politics, the Middle East culture. Runs one of the most fabled magazines properties in America, and keenly interested in who's going to win the New York City mayor's race. But John is a dad and a son, and has you see this in his text to me, but you don't get to see those. I do, but you see it on his Twitter account. John's heart is so big when something happens that involves a culture, but particularly when it involves a death or family. John's heart is so big, but he doesn't lose his keen observational skills. So on Charlotte and on Charlie, go read everything John's written on Twitter or elsewhere, because your heart is so big, and because I'm a dad now too, sometimes what you write makes me cry, because you're so connected to humanity, particularly when it comes to being a parent. So thank you all for being here. Very grateful to you. Start with Kristin, then Steven, then John. Just would love you to freeform a bit, just your overview of your thoughts about where we are, about Charlie, and about where the country is a day later. Kristin.
I'm surprised, but not surprised how there's a cloud of sadness, just sadness, and I think disbelief. Just I feel it. I talk to my colleagues. I talk to clients. There's just an overall pause and sadness. One for Charlie and what happened, but for his family and for his kids. I mean, the videos of his beautiful children running to him. You can't watch that and not just be devastated to see, put aside all he had accomplished, which we can all admit was, generational talent, but just a human life and a family now, destroyed. So there definitely is a cloud of sadness over everyone, and also for what happened to Charlie and how devastated we are, but also to where we might be going. And so the overall, there's an unsettling feeling of what next? How do we come back from this? And, I watched so many, you watch the news and you're so tuned in. It was really hard to do anything else for the last 24 hours because, I think in Susie's interview, she said you saw there was gleams of hope during, the final few hours where we were all praying and hoping that Charlie would make it. That, there was so much talk about, well, both sides. We see this on both sides, and there are, extremists on both sides and rhetoric on both sides. And to me, the part that I can't get over, there are both sides here. It's not Republican and Democrat. It's good and evil. That's what we're looking at, because if you are someone who has the ability to take a gun and end a life, that to me is you're on the other side. That's the evil side. And so I think watching everyone and the clips that you played, where we have to get to is, this is not pointing to a fellow member of Congress or to a colleague or to an opponent. And to see how we kind of come out of it, who's to blame, what's to blame. There's so much. At the end of the day, how do we move forward? Well, I think Charlie is a great example of that. He, died doing exactly what we need to be doing, and that's engaging in this civil discourse. And that's what so many people, to your point, when you encourage people on the left to learn about him, I think not even just on the left, but people who aren't political to, I've sent so many friends and family who don't deal with politics, sent them videos of Charlie just talking about his faith and his life and talking to people he disagreed with, because that is something where we need to get back to, and need to kind of look to our leaders to bring us there. But there will be so many different phases of anger and sadness and who's to blame and so many different reasons. And I can't, say now what I think the answer is, but there's so much, we've come to a point where anyone can go on the internet and anonymously say, or put smack in the chat and say, I hate you and you're terrible. And it's festered this entire culture we have now of, defaulting to that. So how do we get out of that? How do we get back to that discussion and really not look at this as a Republican and a Democrat thing, but really a good and an evil thing? How do we move past it? That's what I think a lot of people I talk to, we're looking at.
Kristin, thank you so much. Speak for tens of millions with that. Steven, again, whatever you'd like to say, either about Charlie, or further about your contact with him, or about where you think we are as a country.
I'll start with Charlie and then talk about the country. First, just the human element of this. I got to know Charlie before he had started his own family, and just this horrific thought of these two daughters losing their father is absolutely just horrible and so sad. And I think wherever you sit on the political spectrum, yes, we need to, even if you're on the opposite side as Charlie Kirk, humanizing him is really important. And I knew the human being, especially during those years that I mentioned, and he really wanted to start a family during those years, and that was really important to him. The second thing is just the enduring memory I have of him is just this kind of joyfulness and playfulness around the idea of debate, which is something I love too. And that was something that we connected on. And the reason why these green room memories are so stark in my mind is because he would talk with everyone, and there would be a real motley crew of people getting together in these green rooms. And I think about some of the people from the Young Turks who are opposite side politically from him and some of the conversations he was having with them. And I think so often when we talk about having civil discourse, people think that's kind of boring or something. Or you talk about conversations across the left and right, you think you're watering down your conversation in some way. One of the takeaways with these debates with Charlie Kirk is that these conversations can be fun, they can be energetic, and they can be really sharp. Like, we're not watering down anything in these conversations. So this kind of sharp-spirited discourse is really what I'm trying to bring more into the country. And I think Charlie showed me how fun and electric it can be for audiences. So I think when we think about America and where we go from here, we have to have a norm of political debate and discourse without the threat of violence. And I do think we're creeping towards a cold civil war that's getting hot at times. And I think all of us, everyone who's tuning in right now, really needs to ask ourselves, how do we respond first to a political culture that's trying to tear us apart, as well as a division industrial complex that's out there that's making money on us hating each other? And how do we push back from that? Because I can say the forces of division out there do not deserve our time, and they do not deserve the us splitting up from members of our family or friends just over politics. And so I think the way to celebrate the spirit of Charlie is to engage in these raucous, fun debates across our lines of difference.
Yeah. Beautiful. Steven, two quick things, then I want to go to John. First, just I know what your answer is going to be, but for those who say Charlie Kirk was a hater, a negative person, a hater, interested in running down other people, what would you say?
I mean, I'll speak from my own personal experience, which is first in private settings, he was always kind and nice to me. And secondly, and I think his style of debate, is he a fiery speaker at times? Absolutely. There's a clip of Charlie and myself that goes viral a bunch of times every year, and he's getting into it with Cenk Uygur. Like, yeah, that sometimes happens, but he also listened too, and sometimes that gets lost.
Yeah. And just to clarify, I'm not correcting you in some sort of school marmish way, but Charlie has a son and a daughter, not two daughters. But
sorry. Yes,
that's okay. That's okay. John, did you know Charlie?
I did not know Charlie.
No. Okay. Love to hear from you. I've read what you've written on social, but love to hear what you think.
So I'm 64, and Charlie Kirk is obviously from a very significantly different generation from mine. And so much so that when someone put up sort of a headstone memorial on social media that said Charlie Kirk, 1993 to 2025, I began to cry. I don't know this guy. And I watched him, I've seen him. I had some problems with him, certainly in his earliest days, as one often does with, callow folk who get involved in politics, and particularly in the Trump era, very facile, if you'll excuse the term, shit posting, like also looking for clicks and all of that, which disturbed me back in the 2015, 2016 when he was really a kid. He's obviously matured remarkably and enormously since then, and his demeanor has changed and all of that. And one of the things that's important to note here is you are on this show 5 times a week, and you have your podcast, I think, is now twice a week, Mark, right? Is it twice a week?
Next up.
So you're basically, one way or another, you're like 7-8 hours a week talking.
12 hours, because I do the
12 hours a
meeting
week
also.
talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my podcast 5 times a week, and I'm here now and all of that.
Yeah.
So over the course of many years, do people say things intemperately? over the course of that time.
Yeah, it happens.
That it happens all the time. It's remarkable it doesn't happen more often. And of course, now everybody can record everything or watch everything or do this. So I see people plucking out things that Charlie Kirk said in 2021, or a thing that he might have said in 2022. Like, when do we, it's something about COVID where he said they shut us down, they wouldn't let us do anything, like, when do we get to pick up our guns and do something about it, or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a part per million in the things that he said and did. And as a provocateur, he wasn't that much of a provocateur.
Yep.
I mean, that's what's striking about it when you get down to it, is there could be literally thousands of things that he said that people would have reason to say, oh my God, like he really contributed to the poisoning of our discourse. And he didn't. He wasn't. That's not what he did. And he wasn't also just a guy going around and doing debates, right? He was a political operative, and a wildly successful one, and an underrated one in this sense. You mentioned this last night, that, when word came that he was basically taking over the Get Out the Vote effort for the Trump campaign in 2024, a lot of people in politics were like, well, this just shows how unserious Trump is. He's just handing it off to this kid. What the hell does he know about it? This is a science. People have been doing this for decades. And obviously, he did a sensational job. He did a sensational job. He was 30 years old. So this is, as you said, generational political talent. And he was, I don't know him, so I don't know, I didn't know him, so I don't know how nice he was or how whatever. I know that for someone in public life, for as long as he was a kid to now, his offenses are extraordinarily marginal. And certainly like more marginal than my own. As you know, I'm on Twitter. I get very intemperate at times. I get very heated, particularly on matters relating to Judaism and anti-Semitism. It is very hard for me to maintain my equilibrium, and I am emotional. I started crying about that 1993 birth date. And I had a similar reaction to Irina, the woman murdered on the Charlotte train, when I realized that she is a year and a half older than my daughter.
Yeah.
So my daughter, who does not live in Charlotte, but lives sometimes in New York. I have three kids, could have been on a train with us. We live in New York, could have been on a subway train with a psychopath with a knife, a monster with a knife. I mean, it's unbearable. And one has to, that's the humanity part, is you make fun of somebody you disagree with. That's one thing. You make fun of somebody that you watched die. We all watched him die. I didn't want to, just popped into my Twitter feed. That video was 4 seconds long. I saw him die. Nobody sees people die. We're not supposed to see other people die, except like our closest relatives in a hospital bed at the end of a long life. And to depersonalize somebody in the way that a lot of people are doing, it just seems inhuman. And as though people are holding on to the ability to depersonalize and dehumanize other people, because not to is too painful, because it will cause too much self-reflection.
Yeah.
And I feel like throughout the last 10 years, you mentioned January 6th, other matters that have gone on. I feel like, it has been necessary for honest people to question the motives, the behaviors, the actions of people on their own side who are advancing causes that they believe in, when their behavior lowers the nature of American discourse or threatens the good civil order of the United States. And I'm seeing not as much of that as I think I might have thought we would see after seeing something we have never seen before. People did not see John F. Kennedy killed. People did not see Sirhan kill RFK. People did not see John Hinckley shoot Ronald Reagan. Like, there were clumps. There's no shot. We saw this seconds after it happened. Like, who are we as people that we can't just take a breath and say what we saw, this should never have happened. And we live in a society in which somehow there's a kind of masochistic or sadistic pleasure in sharing that experience that is the torment, again, be the torment of his children's life and his wife's life. It's very, very, very disturbing, among the most disturbing moments in my sadly relatively long life now.
Yeah. Thank you, Dad. All right. I know my community well. I know our community well. Any one of you could ask a really short question, and then if John and Steven and Kristin all responded at the length that would be commensurate with the seriousness of the question, we get one question in. So we're going to go a little overtime tonight. I'm warning the affiliates now, but I'm going to ask everybody. Not everybody needs to respond at length to everything. Let's just see how many folks we get to, because we have a lot of hands up. So we start with either the first or second most significant Kelly in Buffalo Bills history. I don't know if you'd be second after Jim Kelly. Yeah. Kelly, welcome, and thank you for joining. Are you in Buffalo?
I'm in Rochester right now, but
Rochester. Okay. Well, delighted to have you here. We'd love to know what's on your mind for John and for Kristin and for Steven.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Obviously, what happened is horrible and horrific, and I don't think it matters what side you're on. Nobody should ever celebrate a human life. I guess in general, I'm thinking about the college kids he connected with, the youth, and are we going to leave this group of people that, he went into college campus, he did this years ago, but he connected with high schoolers. He connected with youth in America in a way that nobody has in a long time. And they're already somewhat disenfranchised. One of the things he always talked about was the potential to own a home. We know these people have high debt loads, but what does this do? Does this leave them further disenfranchised?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's something that the people on the left ask yourself, why did Charlie connect with young people? He put on a good show. We'll talk about this on Next Up. Put on a good show, but it was more than that. So great question. Kristin, you first. What do we do about all these young folks who are all saying to their parents yesterday, is this really true? And now who will be connecting with them in Charlie's absence? Kristin.
Yeah, I mean, it is, a testament to a life, just how many lives he's touched, right? How many people feel the void of him being gone. I think it's important to take a step back and wonder why, he filled a void back in, when he started doing this. I mean, if you were in college during the Iraq War or before then, and if you were wearing a George Bush shirt or anything, I mean, probably still today, but even more so then, you couldn't walk to class. I mean, this was visceral forever. He brought that civility to campuses and gave them voices. And so now it's really up to all of us and to our leaders and to people who have worked with him to continue that. We have to continue that. We have to continue that entire philosophy of civil discourse. And there's going to be people who will step up to fill in, I really love the idea of, I think it was Ari Fleischer's idea, the Charlie Kirk seminars to, go bring it back to the schools. I think things like that and keep working it down, go into the high schools, because high school could be even more brutal than college in some places. And so I think it's really going to be on all of us that do this and others to start getting involved to really continue that legacy. That's the key.
Look, there are two numbers that are interesting. One is, of course, these numbers that suggest that young men between the ages of 18 and 25 have turned Republican in a manner that we have not pretty much seen in my lifetime. And so we're at least in the last 20 years. And the Foundation for Individual Rights of Expression released a poll yesterday that said that 34% of college students believe that violence against people who say things they disagree with is acceptable. Think about that for a minute. So this is the same cohort, right? College kids who are moving to the right, and this third of college kids who say that it is okay to use violence. They say it's okay to use violence, period. Not like it's okay to use violence because someone's threatening my kid or something like that. It's okay to use violence as a means of responding to someone with whom I disagree. So we're very schizophrenic here. And And the only way out is through, like when we say things like, we need to get back to a time when we don't go back. We never go back. We can only move forward with the history that we have and the experiences that we are having. And I have no answers to the question of how to deal with these two facts. The only way we really deal with them in America is political contestation, right? That's what elections are for. That's what people win, and then they get to try to work their will through the majorities that they have. And that's why assassinations and things like that are so evil, because they not only are murders and awful, but they're efforts to rob agency from the governed. Like, we no longer have a choice. You know, Charlie Kirk, granted, was not an elected official, but we no longer have him participating in the effort to be part of the American political conversation. And that's a theft from us. Yeah. It's not just a theft for his family and all that, which is much worse, morally, spiritually. And this idea that we shut people down violently or with whatever means rather than conducting discourse is very alive, and it's very frightening, and it's going to have to be overtaken. We're not going back. So I don't know how to go forward. Maybe seminars are good. Maybe this is good. I think this is a mental health crisis, to be honest. I think we've had this 15-year mental health crisis, and that if we don't start figuring out how to deal with it, largely related to phones and the internet and virtual reality, or the virtual reality of the internet and the depersonalization that represents. But we got to go. We can't hope to return to a time that doesn't exist anymore. And it wasn't, as you said about George W. Bush on campus, it wasn't so great back then either.
It wasn't. That's what we needed.
Yeah. Kelly, loved your question and really appreciate the way you phrased it. Do go read Ari Fleischer's proposal on his Twitter feed that Kristin mentioned to bring conservatives to college campus. And I will tell you, just one final response to what you asked, there will be efforts through the White House and through Charlie's organization to have a robust outreach. And I hope Democrats do the same thing, because Charlie had a template for inspiring young people to be concerned about public life, and it was an extraordinary gift, and we can't let the country can't let that die with him. Kelly, thank you.
And I think just very quickly, the major shift that, I guess I've spent a lot of time on college campuses, the major shift that's happened over the last 10 years, and you'll see even more so now, is more of a willingness on the part of the administrations on college campuses to have conservative speakers actually speak on campus, versus maybe 5 to 10 years ago. A lot of them were shouted down or even denied being able to have a platform.
Yeah, I never read the chat, as you know, but I just glanced at it, and Dean put in the chat the link to Ari's tweet, so I recommend that to you. I'm assuming your name's pronounced Jamie, and that your parents did you no favors with the spelling, but yeah.
No,
Jamie,
thank you.
Yeah,
mispronounced a lot.
Yeah.
So
well, welcome, and thank you for being part of 2A. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind for Steven and Kristin and John.
So I live in Lexington, Kentucky area. John, I'm a huge fan of yours. I found you the evening that the Biden audio was released. Remember that night when you were on Mark's show, and that was the first time I heard about the commentary, and I'm a faithful listener now. So I love your commentary. I've learned so much about the Jewish Americans' view of Israel. I'm from Kansas and I live in Kentucky, so my percentage of exposure to Jewish Americans is minimal compared to New York City. I mean, I obviously have friends who are Jewish, but trying to understand your vantage point from New York is really helpful on how you all feel on that podcast. So I just want to thank you, Mark, for introducing me to John. I love John.
I'm delighted. I'm delighted. And I've long recommended to John that if you can certify that you've listened to 4 months of the commentary podcast, you are eligible to be awarded a PhD in Judaica. So
Yes.
if you've done 4 months,
I've learned so much.
John will send you a
So-
certificate.
Thank you.
Jamie,
Okay,
thank
John,
you for that.
I'll look for that, John.
Question.
So I wanted to make a comment.
Yep,
The
of
person who
course.
spoke right before me sort of said something. I have a 16, 17-year-old boys. They both have been Charlie Kirk listeners, mainly my 17-year-old. He's a senior in high school. He listens to and watches Charlie, had been every day, I would say, snippets of him. He's a conservative. my 16-year-old got in the car from school and I didn't know what had happened. And he said, Mom, did you hear about Charlie Kirk? And we didn't know he had died yet. And then I dropped him at something, picked him back up, and he's in the car with me when I find out that he's died, and I'm crying and he's sitting there. And, it's so traumatic. And for them, I think it's kind of and I don't want to say as big as 9/11. For them, though, this is a big moment.
Jamie,
There's
how are they
doing
today? How are they doing today, Jamie?
They're okay. I mean, he didn't really know what to say. And I said to him, I don't know what to say to you. How do you explain this to a 16-year-old? I said he was exhibiting his free speech. He should not be punished for that. He should not be killed for that. But what I also wanted to say is one of my colleagues, he has an 11 and 13-year-old boy. And they told him yesterday, he told me today, they're the ones who told him. The 13-year-old, he said, was torn to pieces. He watches Charlie Kirk. There is this entire generation of kids, boys, I think in particular, but also girls, who have been spoken into their lives by Charlie. And, I've been watching more of his stuff this last week or last day because I can't help it. But it was more than politics. It was value your family, have kids, love your kids, put your kids first, put your faith first. There was politics there, but it was humanity,
Oh, can I make a point about this? The first person that I knew who had used new media to reach young people and young men the way you're talking about was Ben Shapiro, whom I've known for a long time. And Ben was this kid. He's now 40, 41, but 15 years ago, he was 25, had written a couple of books, was writing newspaper columns from the age of 18. He had this ability to connect to young men. And it was very interesting to me that he had this ability. And some of it was that he would talk about being a man, even though he was himself not much more than a boy, but an Orthodox Jew, lived an organized ritualistic life. I think by this point was either married or about to get married. And there were two paths that this could have gone down. Because a lot of these young men, these boys, were also very tempted by Andrew Tate, by this world of get yourself, firm handshake, look someone in the eye, give them have a firm handshake, be a man. But it was bad. It was be a man and then be aggressive and sort of sexually aggressive and ugly spirited. And of course, Andrew Tate is a very problematic figure. And then there was Ben, and then there was Charlie, who was like an evangelical version of Ben, which is to say that a lot of what's mentioned, and Jordan Peterson did the same thing 10 years ago, is here's what it means to be a man in a country that does not seem to value men very much. Get married, have children, support your family, get a job, go to work, get up every day in the morning and, help your wife with the kids in the morning, go to work on time, try to get ahead in life to help your family. You have a mission. Life has a mission and life has a purpose. And that I think is very, very resonant. And Charlie Kirk deserves credit, as Ben does, as a lot of other people do, for saying it's not just about politics. It's not like liberals are bad. I hate liberals and they're socialists and they're all terrible. It's also be a person of purpose, live a life of purpose. And a lot of that has a religious framing. And I share Ben's faith, and I am of a different faith from Charlie Kirk, but the messages are not all that dissimilar. And aside from talking about having robust debates on college campuses, a tribute to Charlie Kirk would be to understand the message that he was imparting to young men in America who are ill-served by this culture.
Yeah.
Either they are being amused to death by gaming and trivial pursuits, or they are being attacked for their testosterone levels. And there's got to be another way through, and these guys offered a way through.
All right, Alex, unmute. Jamie, thank you, and I hope your boys are okay. Thank you for that. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also from Kentucky. I'm from Bowling Green, Kentucky. I would just want to say I watch this program every morning and every afternoon. John, I also watch the Commentary podcast almost every day.
Almost
I'm
every
just
day.
almost every. Well, it's not. Y'all, neither one of y'all are on during the weekend.
I don't even watch it every day.
Mark, I do. I do. Don't worry.
Thank you, Kristin.
I'm just very angry and upset, and I'm kind of exhausted from keeping up with this. I couldn't really sleep very well last night. I never was a super big. I didn't watch Charlie Kirk's podcast and stuff like that. I wasn't like a super fan by any means, but it really just feels like this is different than when Trump got shot or other politicians get attacked, because Charlie Kirk wasn't a politician. He didn't have a position of political power that people were trying to remove him from. He was murdered, from what we can tell, for his beliefs. And with that being the case, people who believe conservative ideals and stuff and everything, half of the country has been told for a decade that we're Nazis and that we're fascists and that violence against fascists is acceptable or even celebrated. And what is stopping someone from going into a local conservative meeting or a local Republican Party meeting and doing something like this, a mentally ill person? And then at the same time, we have Republican politicians, like I saw Tom Tillis said that what he was really disgusted by was conservative talking heads using this as an opportunity. Someone got murdered for their political views. And instead, what the media, what a lot of even people on our own side seem to want to focus on is the response by Republicans. When Democrats are attacked, if you listen to the media, if you listen to Democrat politicians, even if you listen to people like Tom Tillis, it's the fault of Donald Trump and it's the fault of the MAGA Republicans. I wouldn't even consider myself a very MAGA Republican. I mean, I'm a commentary fan, but it's laid at the feet of the right. And when Republicans are attacked, it's laid at the feet of the right, or at best, both sides. It's really just been infuriating. I haven't seen hardly anyone going after Chris Murphy for just a week or so ago, saying that I think he said that we're in the middle of a war.
Yeah. Alex, I want to let folks respond to what you said. And I'm so grateful to you for coming on and the fact that you weren't a Charlie fan, but you've been so upset about it, I think, again, speaks for tens of millions. Kristin, then Steven, then I have two pieces of video I want to show everyone. And again, we'll run a little bit over. We want to get more of you in. So Alex, thank you. Kristin, respond to Alex, and then
Steven.
No,
and thank you for sharing. A lot of us are feeling what you're feeling for sure, and talking to each other about it. I think, there's gonna be a lot of talk on response, as you said. The biggest thing I think we definitely need to demand is accountability, mostly from the media. I mean, when you see, I watched MSNBC for 5 minutes during all this yesterday, and I could not believe what I was seeing. Now I'm surprised that they did take action and correct, where there are things overstepping, but we need to keep our dialogue accountable, especially the media. I mean, for so long, and that's especially conservatives, we've felt that we've been, pushed down and frankly gaslit for decades for just our beliefs. And so I think that part of that is really going to be, it's going to be incumbent upon the media itself to hold each other accountable, but for us to hold them accountable. When you have, several Democrats making up statistics to say, well, 96% of crime is this party or that party. I mean, we have to hold a lot of this accountable to diffuse the anger that we are injecting into our discourse. I mean, and the media is the referee of it. They just have been. And so we need to hold the media to a higher standard, each other to a higher standard, and fix that dialogue that we're seeing, versus just pointing fingers and saying, well, you said this too harsh and I said this too harsh. The accountability part is going to be huge. And the media is the first one that's going to have to do it, because they're the first voices that we hear. And they're the lens through which most America hears a lot of this. And so if they're not held accountable and they let someone like Rep. Omar, go on and say a number of different things and, basically diffuse moments like this and desensitize us to it. We can't let ourselves become desensitized to moments like this. And that's what I think the media will do. And we need to hold them accountable when they do it.
Stephen, thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree. Will this be a moment when the media decides to change, to become more thoughtful, more nuanced, having more constructive conversations across divides, and just getting out of some of these old, tired binaries that only inflame the conversation? And I see so often, like, just building on Kristin's point about MSNBC, whether it is a liberal media or conservative media, I see a lot of evidence of the decision makers and the key spokespeople and the commentators truly, truly living in a bubble. And frankly, speaking of the reactions to yesterday, I saw it's almost like a lot of these politicians have the same consultant working for them, because you see their reactions, almost like the same exact language copied and pasted. And it's like, is there anyone authentic here, just speaking from the heart? I mean, I have trouble finding that. And I think I'm just going to pose this as a question. Maybe, Mark, you can take this as an expert in how the media functions, whether there will be any kind of change, and whether, using Charlie Kirk as an example, like, here I am as a Democratic commentator, and I've said a lot of nice things about Charlie. Does that make me a weak commentator? Or does that make me stronger because I feel like I can learn something from people who are different than me? Is that kind of mindset going to translate into the media, Mark? Because this is a big question I think a lot about.
I doubt it. I hope so. Alex, so grateful to come on. I don't want this to sound condescending.
Can I make one quick point?
Yeah,
really quick.
Go ahead,
Alex,
John.
you said you're worried. What if somebody walks into a Republican, meeting and does, in there what happened to Charlie yesterday? Well, once again, Jews are the canary in the coal mine. Since October 7th, there have been these moments when a man walked into somebody's house in Muncie, New York, with a machete into their home, a religious Jewish home, to do violence to them in their house. Right? Somebody was hit on the head and killed in Thousand Oaks, California, in the middle of a pro-Israel demonstration. This happened in Denver 2 weeks ago to protesters who were killed, and then there were 2 people killed, obviously, outside this event in Washington, D.C., sponsored by the Israeli embassy. And the classic rule about anti-Semitism is that it's a flash vision of a potential future that spreads from assaults on Jews to assaults on common culture, and I would be worried. I don't think that there is any reason not to be worried. Jews have had to secure the places of worship and schools and places that we go to do communal things, really since 9/11, but since October 7th, redesigned synagogue entrances and all across the country, and since Poe and Tree of Life. And so that this is a real thing, and maybe we can change the discourse and get back to the presumption of grace, as Mark would say, but you can't depend on that. And people are going to be looking over their shoulder. Right now, the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, is on lockdown. Yeah. There's an active shooter situation at the Naval Academy, the U.S. Naval Academy.
Alex,
not related to this?
Two things before you go, Alex. First of all, believe it or not, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, what John just did is considered a short statement. I know in Kentucky that'd be like the longest speech you'd hear in a year, but that was considered short. And John, I kid because I love. And 2, Alex, really, again, I don't want this to sound condescending, but really brave of you and great of you to come on and share what you're feeling and thinking, and really appreciate you being part of Two-Way. So thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Want to get a couple more in, but I also want to show you some things that have occurred since we've been talking. First, we're not going to show you, but the president shook hands with a bunch of New York Yankees, including Aaron Judge. I'm not showing you that because I'm for the Red Sox. But here are 2 things, both disturbing. 3 things. One not disturbing, I'm told. First, this is the Vice President of the United States, Sam, one of the people carrying the casket, Charlie's casket, on a plane to fly back to Arizona with his family. And I keep saying it, but if you want to understand what's happening in the White House, if you want to understand what's happening in the president's and vice president's orbit, you have to understand how close the vice president was to Charlie and all the people around the vice president, just so supremely close to him, loved him, relied on him, texted with him every day, one-on-one in text chains every day. And again, the vice president, rather than coming here to New York for the 9/11 commemoration, flew out to Utah. And again, I don't know the vice president very well, barely know him, but I can tell you this is a very tough thing for him. Very tough thing for him to go out and pick up his friend and his widow and their children and take them back to Arizona. So he's going to be tested in this. Here's something from TMZ, and we're an open platform here, so we'll show you stuff, maybe not fully verified, but I'm pretty confident it's real because TMZ, for all their reputation, rarely gets things wrong. This is a kind of creepy video before the shooting and after the shooting of the alleged shooter. I'm not quite sure how they know. It seems to, as best you can see, you watch him there in the back on the left side walking, seems to match the still photos. Again, it's at a pretty long focal length, but this video is getting a lot of play on social media right now because although the government released still photos of the alleged shooter, see, I don't read the chat. Does he have a limp? It's possible he's got the weapon strapped to him there, and that's why he's walking that way. Possible. I saw that speculation. I'll repeat it. I don't know. And I don't know that this is the alleged shooter, but like I said, TMZ has a pretty good track record. Now, as this plays out, I'm going to show you one more thing, and then we're going to get to a few more of your questions. And again, appreciate those of you staying a little bit long this evening because a lot of hands up. Bernie Sanders has put out a long video talking about what's happened. And we'll watch it together. We'll watch the whole thing. It's relatively long, but I want to watch the beginning of it because I think what he has to say is pretty interesting. And whatever you think of Senator Sanders, he's a thoughtful person at times like this, in my experience. So, Sam, go ahead and dump out of this TMZ video and play Senator Sanders, please.
Thank you very much for joining me. I want to say a few words regarding the terrible murder yesterday of Charlie Kirk, someone who I strongly disagreed with on almost every issue, but who was clearly a very smart and effective communicator and organizer, and someone unafraid to get out into the world and engage the public. My condolences go out to his wife and his family. A free and democratic society, which is what America is supposed to be about, depends upon the basic premise that people can speak out, organize, and take part in public life without fear, without worrying that they might be killed, injured, or humiliated for expressing their political views. In fact, that is the essence of what freedom is about and what democracy is about. You have a point of view, that's great. I have a point of view that is different than yours. That's great. Let's argue it out. We make our case to the American people at the local, state, and federal levels, and we hold free elections in which the people decide what they want. That's called freedom and democracy. And I want as many people as possible to participate in that process without fear. Freedom and democracy is not about political violence. It is not about assassinating public officials. It is not about trying to intimidate people who speak out on an issue. Political violence, in fact, is political cowardice. It means that you cannot convince people of the correctness of your ideas, and you have to impose them through force. Every American, no matter what one's political point of view may be, must condemn all forms of political violence and all forms of intimidation. We must welcome and respect dissenting points of view. That's what our Constitution is about. That's what our Bill of Rights is about. That, in fact, is what freedom is about. The murder of Charlie Kirk is part of a disturbing rise in political violence that threatens to hollow out public life and make people afraid of participating. From the January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, to the attack on Paul Pelosi, to the attempted kidnapping of Michigan Governor Whitmer, to the murder of Minnesota's Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, to the arson attack on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, to the shooting of United Health Executive Brian Thompson, and the shooting several years ago of Representative Steve Scalise, this chilling rise in violence has targeted public officials across the political spectrum. Sadly, this is not a new phenomenon. We all remember the assassinations of President Kennedy, Dr. Martin Luther King
Sam,
Jr.,
how much more of this is
Senator
there?
Robert F. Kennedy, John Lennon, Medgar Evers, and the attempted
About a minute.
assassinations of President Ronald Reagan.
It's so
and
spectacular, we're
Alabama
going to listen to
Governor
it all.
George Wallace. This is a difficult and contentious moment in American history. Democracy in our country and throughout the world is under attack. And there are a lot of reasons for that which need serious discussion. But bottom line, if we honestly believe in democracy, if we believe in freedom, all of us must be loud and clear. Political violence, regardless of ideology, is not the answer and must be condemned. Thank you very much.
I hope every one of you who watched that thought it was spectacular. Hope every one of you did. It truly was. I'll say two things. They may sound a little churlish, maybe. One is Governor Shapiro just did an interview with ABC in which he criticized the president for his comparable remarks last night in which the president mentioned only Republicans who were targeted. I'm so grateful to Senator Sanders for naming people of both parties, because people in both parties have been targeted. Second, and this will be more churlish, because again, I thought that was spectacular. It would be great if Senator Sanders' fidelity to free speech had extended to criticizing college campuses for keeping people like Ben Shapiro from speaking over the last many decades by threats of physical violence and intimidation. I'm eager to ask him if he's had a change of heart about how important it is to speak out about that. So let's go around. Love to hear each of you briefly, not Podhoretz briefly, but Kentucky briefly, on what you thought of what Senator Sanders said, and then we're going to go back to questions from the community. And any of you guests who need to go, you'll let me know. But we'll go for maybe 5 more minutes. Kristin.
Yeah, no, I agree with your analysis of it. I think, there are a number of, I'm sure, Senator Sanders colleagues who should watch that and take some advice from his demeanor, because it is an emotional time. This is a sad time, angry time for so many people. It's important. And I think Charlie Kirk, I think I saw a tweet that he tweeted himself that when all moments like this, take a pause, step away. I mean, that's what a lot of people need to do, because there's some people are saying things that I think 6 months from now, they'll look back and wish that their better angels took over. So I hope that there are a lot of Senator Sanders colleagues look at that and stay in that lane.
It's great point, Kristin. Not only what he said, but how he said it, I thought was pitch perfect. Steven.
I thought it was very good. And I think this is the role of leadership, because I think that now a number of people who are Sanders followers who have put out statements over the last 18 hours or so that I think have been less good may now be improved because of their listening to Senator Sanders' remarks there. And I think what leaders can do is, first of all, do exactly what Kristin is saying, which is take a moment to really absorb a situation and perhaps gain some perspective on it, and channel a lot of different emotions to try and uplift people and a message that can make us better. And that's exactly what Senator Sanders did. And I think that's a great example of leadership we just saw from him.
John, try to top that. Both Kristin and Steven were amazing.
This is the greatest political moment of Bernie Sanders' life.
Yeah.
It was a transcendent political moment from somebody from whom I mostly only ever had contempt. So yeah, I'm speechless with admiration, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought it was lovely, and as you suggest, maybe not always hits those notes, but quite something. And the other thing about it was his heart was in it, clearly. I mean, very heartfelt. Okay, let's get a few more folks in, and again, really pleased for everybody sticking around. Justin, welcome in. grateful to have you here. I see you put security in your tag there. So love to know where you are and what's on your mind for Kristin and Steven and John.
Thank you. I'm in Honolulu and just have security on the mind and going forward for everybody like, Charlie. And just a quick story. In 2008, they talked about how Obama security was kind of lax. And I kind of wondered if it was just liberal media saying that. But I actually went to an event at Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis, Missouri, and never went through a security metal detector, never went through anything. I got all the way up. I ended up being in a room with him and about 10 people, shook his hand, had a conversation with him. I was really struck by that. I just really hope that going forward, everybody else, I'm here, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, all these people are going to take up the mantle. Really, are they thinking about security, and is it going to be different and safe? And the last little thing, because just to add on, I was just going to say that I think that tolerance is kind of like a hollow word, and I think love is a much richer word. And I would say this to people before this incident, and I would say it to now all of us grieving after. Somebody really wise said, "Love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you."
Beautiful, thank you, Kristin.
Security for sure is you're going to see a lot change, I think. Now, there's a balance between not letting evil take over. What they want is for everyone to be scared, and what they want is for our discourse to shut down and for our leaders to not have access to people. And so there's a balance because, the natural inclination is to immediately cancel and stay inside and not do it. But you can't do that. You can't let them win. But I do think you're going to see a lot adjust, particularly on the campaign trail. You saw it somewhat in the cycle last year after the assassination attempt on President Trump, glass in front of them, just a number of things. I think you're going to see a lot more security checks on look, this was probably the highest profile person in a casual setting. It's a college campus, right? There's probably, so now I think even those types of settings are going to have more barriers, more secure. They should. I hope they do, unfortunately, at least right now in this time. But the important thing here is to find the balance, because you can't shut in, you can't turn away, you can't hide. That's not what Charlie would have wanted, just watching the way he lived his life and his mission. And I don't think it's good for the country. And I don't think leaders would want to do that. So it's finding the balance of keeping people safe and also showing strength in showing up and appearing.
Beautiful, Kristin. Steven.
A lot's been talked about how there weren't tickets for this event and there wasn't really any security. And we were talking earlier about the spirit of open debate that Charlie embodies and that I really believe in too. And I love the style of politics where everyone is welcome, anyone can come, any background, and there aren't a lot of barriers to entry. And I think that's something that Charlie believed in. Obviously, he knew there were security concerns, which is why he had his own personal security. They probably, I'm sure there were conversations about having additional security, but then there are real trade-offs with that. So I just hate that this event will likely lead to more security and more vetting and more barriers to entry to future events like this. And I when I was running for Senate, I remember there were political consultants who thought I was crazy for not pre-screening questions that were asked of me. It's like, I want the natural form of politics, whatever's on people's minds, and I'm not going to be prepped on what they're going to say. I think that's something that Charlie also just enjoyed, and I hate that an overly burdensome security presence might take away from that.
Can I quickly point out that in 2005, Bill Kristol was at Earlham College in Indiana, and he had a pie thrown in his face. The pie thrown in his face. This also happened to Natan Sharansky a year earlier. These guys were hurling pies. Remember, George Bush had a shoe thrown at him in Iraq. That was the broken windows moment, which is to say, that was the moment when college presidents and people in universities and places like that should have said, if we don't stop someone from throwing a pie, if we don't, kick out the people and prosecute the people who did that, which may have happened. But if we don't change the atmosphere here, 20 years from now, someone's going to shoot somebody in an open field at an event at a campus in Utah, of all places. So the security stuff is a fail. We need to tighten security because of a failure to make it clear where the boundaries of what is acceptable are, right? So we had this moment, again, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, the guy who threw the sandwich in DC at the National Guardsman and then ran away? I know it's ridiculous. He threw a sandwich. It's not a projectile. No one's going to get hurt by throwing a sandwich. You can't throw an object at a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
You dismiss that charge, and you'll get more people throwing things at law enforcement officers, and then the next thing will be a bullet. So that's I think where security comes in also. Like, we have to go forward, understanding that we've already crossed this Rubicon.
Justin, thank you. Grateful to you for being part of Two-Way. A few things. I got one more piece of video that just came in I want to show everybody. This program's available as a podcast, as is the morning meeting. I recommend them to you. Please like, subscribe, download, etc. New episode of Next Up has been posted on YouTube and as a podcast. My conversation with Megyn Kelly, we showed you a little bit of it earlier. Megyn is quite raw, as I am, about this, and so I think you'll be interested in that. Robert Pape, professor from the University of Chicago, one of the country's maybe the leading expert on political violence in this country, does a lot of polling on public attitudes towards political violence. Conversation with Professor Pape, I recommend that to you. Then my monologue on why Charlie was singular. Talked to a lot of his friends last night and emailed and texted this morning. And so you'll hear my reflections on my contact with him, but also what a lot of his friends were saying and trying to explain why he was so beloved and so talented and so successful. And then finally, again, Charlie wouldn't do this about himself, but I was very proud of the interviews I did with him. I was on his show more than he came on mine. His show has better ratings. But he came on Two-Way and he came on Next Up, and interviewed him on Tuesday for about 40 minutes. And then on this episode of Next Up, a little bit from that interview, but mostly from his appearance here on Two-Way, where he talked to members of the community. And I always tried to ask him questions he wasn't expecting. His staff hated it. They'd say, not worth going on. But Charlie seemed to love it. So you'll see him answer questions. Again, I say proudly because I worked hard on the interviews. You'll see him answer questions about things like Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, how he feels, whether he has any enemies in the Trump White House, things I don't think you've heard him say elsewhere. And on the Tuesday show, we talked about something mentioned earlier, how passionate Charlie is about young people having economic opportunity and how thoughtful he was about what this administration, for instance, could do about housing. So I recommend this episode to you. I'm proud of it. And if you want to understand Charlie, I think it's a pretty good place to look. Finally, remember the president was in Gotham City on Sunday, went to the U.S. Open and got pretty booed. There were some cheers, but booed. What a difference an assassination makes. Charlie Kirk, and obviously tennis audience is not the same as a baseball audience, but here is the president moments ago in his box in the Bronx for the Yankee game, and listen to how the crowd reacted. Reminiscent, of course, when George Bush went to Yankee Stadium shortly after 9/11, and the folks in the Bronx are always up to chant patriotically, but that's a great moment for us, whether you like Donald Trump or not. It's wonderful to see the country being optimistic and supportive of the commander-in-chief, whether their chants were over 9/11 or whether they're over Charlie. I, for one, again, independent journalist, not pro or anti-Trump. I'm glad to see that. Thank you again to John and to Steven and Kristin. So glad. I couldn't think of three people I'd rather have on a night like this. Dan, Sean, and I will be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time for the morning meeting. And one more episode of this program and special reports as needed. So grateful to you for being part of this community. Loved all the questions tonight. And I know there are still a lot of hands up, and someday we'll do a 6-hour episode on a night like this and get everybody in, but we got in some of you, and I'm grateful to you for being part of it. Thank you all. Have a great night.